Okay, and now we're going to move on with a very interesting segment. We have a fireside chat with two experts when it comes to Ethereum. There is a lot to talk about and a lot to consider. A lot has happened this week. The Trustless Manifesto is here. We're talking about interoperability. We're talking about the ethos of Ethereum. What is convenient? What falls within the ethos of Ethereum, and what should builders really be focused on? I want you all to pay attention to the QR code on the right that you're going to see on the screen. When you scan that, you can ask our speakers anything that you would like, and then, granted we have time, we will choose the best questions to answer for you. So please, without further ado, welcome to the stage Tomasz and Marissa Posner.
Hey guys.
Oh, hello. Oh, we have the cloud.
I think this
Nice.
is working. Great to see you. Thank you guys so much for coming to our Trustless event. I have with me here Tomasz, co-executive director of the Ethereum Foundation, founder of Nethermind. He needs no introduction. So yeah, Tomasz, thank you so much for being here. I guess, yeah, just quickly, if you want to say like one or two sentences like on what your role is as executive director and some of the things that you do.
Hi everyone. Well, joined Foundation in April as a co-executive director. My role is probably most of the time to help people just execute at the foundation and outside of the foundation in the Ethereum ecosystem, all the different ideas. Sometimes it means that they'll have conflicting ideas, but they want to deliver an experiment or solve big problems in a hard way. So I think it's all about removing the obstacles if possible and accelerating the decision-making processes at the foundation and helping with coordination of the ecosystem. It's kind of like simply the role of the foundation, and my role is to make sure that the foundation can deliver that role.
Awesome. Yeah, is there a misconception that you think that the community misunderstands about the EF or our role?
Sure, I think that the funniest thing always that I hear is that foundation is bureaucratic because it's almost like opposite of bureaucratic. Because at the same time I hear that foundation is bureaucratic, and then I hear that foundation doesn't have well-specified roles, and it's hard to say who does what, and there are no processes, so it's really opposite. So I think we are in between. We are pretty healthy on the amount of processes, and we are healthy on combining a bit of freedom and decentralization internally and introducing hierarchy gradually. So I would say I made it more bureaucratic than it was. It was funny to hear in the past that it was bureaucratic. I think that indecision not necessarily means that you have too many processes that are stopping those decisions. Sometimes it's just dealing with a very hard, difficult legal environment, very difficult set of goals and challenges and priorities that you want to set that may make people a bit paralyzed. So the misconception is we're not bureaucratic, we're sometimes paralyzed by the weight of decisions that we're making.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think there's this like tension of like, or I think the community often says like, oh, the EF is either too hands-off or too opinionated. How do you think that like the EF should balance that?
Oh, so we're not really hands-off. We work on the engineering problems, research problems, coordination, so we do a lot of things. It's definitely not just some kind of management without touching the things. So we work with the protocols, we test the protocol, we run the entire DevOps infrastructure for testing all the different combinations of clients. But then when we're talking about maybe handling the ecosystem as being hands-off and not taking decisions on who to support, whose message to amplify, or maybe like being biased. So balancing, I think, is on meritocracy. So making sure as much as possible that we always capable of answering questions about what is better for a particular use case. It's just that with the experimentation of, for example, all the different L2s or the different solutions of problems like bridging, interop, that we can tell what are the advantages and disadvantages of each of the solutions. And in this way, we can actually very confidently support all the different approaches, saying that we know that they may have failures, and then that over time we'll see clearer and clearer which use cases are dominant and more relevant for the impact that we want to share. So as long as we remember the set of values that we set for ourselves as a foundation, we know what we want to see on Ethereum. And at the same time, I know that Ethereum itself may reject the foundation values, and this will be totally fair. We don't deserve the right to own the chain in any way.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. If there was like one value that you could pick for like Ethereum's, I don't know, next decade or something, what value do you think like Ethereum should kind of most align with?
I don't know. My favorite one is open source, definitely. It's just that my vision for the world for the future is that we really can play with all the mechanisms, all the transparency and curiosity of ours of how all the governments, how all the institutions work. So having always the insight into what we're building and being able to contribute to it is great. And I think that's what blockchain really delivers. Everything else, obviously we have decentralization, we have censorship resistance, like we deliver security, privacy. It matters, but like if you talk about excitement of what makes me feel, oh, this is great, it's open sourcing the entire world.
Yeah. Why do you think like open source is most important?
Why open sourcing? Because it defines the permissionlessness and curiosity, and I think that curiosity is, for me, a driver, the reason to exist a bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think like turning to another value, our conference is called Trustless, and we came out with the Trustless manifesto this week. And one of the lines in the manifesto argues that trustlessness isn't a feature, it is the point. So I guess as EF executive director, or personally, how would you define trustlessness in your own words?
Yeah, sure. I think that very often we talk about trust and trustlessness, and almost when you try to find the language that existed in traditional finance, it's almost like trust is the opposite of risk. That if you trust someone, that you don't expect anything unexpected, you don't expect volatility of the future results of collaborating with that person. And if you see the risk in a person, it's exactly the opposite. You expect that there will be lots of volatility. It means that if we have such a clear opposite, then we can always go back to the traditional finance, traditional world and say, we can actually redefine everything that we're talking about in the context of risk. So then it's easier to talk outside of blockchain and say, I care a lot about the systems that can decrease the required amount of trust, which means the systems decrease the risk. And if the systems decrease the risk, then they decrease the cost of insurance, they decrease the cost of uncertainty, and allow for more efficient finance. At the same time, like Trustless manifesto, on one side says that it's all about trustlessness, but it's not to make the markets more efficient, but it's almost like the same definition. We are making markets more efficient by removing the need of trust. And I think that this is actually the very reason why everyone adopts blockchain in the financial world, is that they find blockchain to be reducing risk, which is the single most important measure for pricing all the instruments and pricing all the interactions in the traditional finance.
Yeah, I think that the point of the manifesto wasn't necessarily like about that specific finance point. I think that was like one line in the larger manifesto, but more, I completely agree with your point about that for like finance reducing risk. I think it's like we're saying the same thing, just in different languages. Like finance uses the word risk, and maybe in blockchain we use the word trust, but essentially it is saying kind of the same thing. I think, I guess it's interesting how those play together. I think one of the things that the manifesto talks about is how like trust creeps in silently, like whether through UIs or RPCs or et cetera. So do you think that Ethereum do you see this drift happening, that Ethereum is drifting towards more trusted servers as a lot of like Web3 products are built on Web2 backends, such as, yesterday with the Cloudflare outage, we saw, Etherscan was down, DeFi Llama was down, there was many Web3 companies that were down. So do you feel like Ethereum is drifting more towards trust?
I think that we are actually drifting further and further away from the trust requirements. You practically see Ethereum as an ecosystem that is all the people that are building towards removing the trust requirement and to strengthen that property of trustlessness on Ethereum. And this is super incentive aligned. When you hear Danny Ryan on stage in the last days talking about his journey of going to institutions as a person from who like a few months ago or years ago was outside of the traditional finance market, and realizing that actually we all are super aligned, that the large institutions, governments and so on say, oh, we want decentralization, and we need privacy, and we need everything to be very secure, and ideally we would open source solutions because we want to remove the counterparty risk. And suddenly we realize, oh, they name exactly the same values that we name at the foundation. And then we wonder, so why did we think that nobody cared about those? And this is because within the blockchain space, we've been always working with lots of speculation and searching for risk. And when you search for risk, then very often you trade the trust, which means that even as we build the trustless systems, they, on the side, somehow they built a major product of being nice space for people that are risk-seeking. And very naturally, almost by definition, the risk-seeking people, the speculators, will not care that much about the trust because they want to trade it for potential upsides. So I drifted away possibly from the exact question, so remind me.
The question was, do you feel like the ecosystem is drifting?
So I didn't, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think we are going there. I think we are getting better and better. It's also that with the growing volumes of all the trades, it seems that more and more mechanism aspects are appearing that tell us, oh, this was always broken and nobody ever looked at it. And when you think about emergence of MEV, it's not like MEV didn't exist in 2016, 17 or earlier. It was there, but people in 2019, 20 started publishing papers and it's like, oh wow, there's more and more volume. It's a bigger thing, so it's a big enough topic to have incentives for many people with experience in finance, in trading, to talk about MEV. And we introduced some solutions that already make it much better. And you may think that, oh, we also introducing the improvements to the infrastructure in general. But the infrastructure at the beginning was extremely trusted. Like the RPCs nowadays, we have many more options to choose RPC than it was in 2017, right? Unless we would say, oh, there was an assumption that everyone would run their own node, but they were not. Like very quickly they were running the RPCs, and all of this got improved. So there are more options, and I think the UX, the nature of UX is almost, and the branding and the product management is that user can actually choose between the spectrum of options between total trustlessness and the full trust, and I can decide whether it's more expensive or less. As long as Ethereum delivers the fully trustless option, then it's a great achievement. But we should always think that we're leaving that for the user freedom to choose between different UX options.
For sure. Do you feel like it's the EF's responsibility to kind of push back against those trust assumptions, or to just put it in the hands of the user and let them learn? Like, do you think there's anything that the Ethereum has to do at the L1 level or protocol level?
I think that EF responsibility is to make sure that we deliver solutions that might be less monetizable and harder to fund, like the public goods with the trustlessness solutions. So something that does introduce a lot of impact, but not necessarily give anyone ability to, like, with perfect trustlessness, you don't give anyone control and ability to monetize. Remove intermediaries, you remove the owners, you remove the operators, so you don't really create an opportunity to make money. But it's definitely not our role to remove those who actually deliver very important value to the users, which is, I will allow you to choose of how much of the trustlessness, of how much of those security properties to trade for the better experience. Because sometimes users will choose something that looks more shiny, or maybe works faster, or maybe is, whatever things that they choose. And we cannot predict all the user needs, and it's hard to impose on all the users the particular behaviors.
Yeah, for sure. I think that something that's missing today in my mind is the like I feel like applications don't let the user know. They don't exactly let the user make those choices. For example, if I go to do a cross-chain swap, I see the options presented to me. Like if I go to like Socket, for example, I can see that I can see the time it's going to take me to swap, and I can see how much it's going to cost. I don't see if I'm sending it to an EOA wallet, and I may not, and I just have to hope that I get my funds on the other side, or if it's going through a relayer. I just see like the time it's going to take and the cost. So I don't feel like in the current UX it's presented to the user. So I guess.
But I can always send it via canonical bridge and swap myself, right? So.
I mean, yes, but yeah, I mean that will take a long time, like 7.
Yeah, but this is exactly the trade of I can do something slower and without any trust. I don't have to use the relayer, or I have opportunity to choose a relayer.
But I'm saying that in the current UX of like systems, they're not letting the user know the trust assumptions of the different ways. So like I can see all of these different ways that I can send my assets cross-chain, but I am not told what the trust assumptions of those are. So how do you like think that we as the foundation should kind of go about setting those standards or making, because I agree with you, that users should be able to choose, like if I'm sending $10 cross-chain, it matters much less. Like I could use a centralized service, right? But if I'm sending $100,000, I would want to use a more trustless solution. So, but currently solutions aren't letting, the user know this. So how do you think like the foundation plays a role in that?
Yeah, I mean, like, so if you're talking about the situations like very dishonest practices on the marketing side, like the operators saying that they can just breach but not disclosing all the risks, I think that I could imagine the foundation's role in being educator consistently of all the challenges, all the risks assumptions, and we probably will put a lot of effort into further education. It differs between the retail users and the institutional users. Institutional users are used to the concepts of risks and trust as opposites, and they will always verify what systems they integrate with their internal systems. And I think if we deliver solutions that are properly trustless, whether it's like correct EIL design or anything else that we can suggest, they will say, okay, this is less risk for me, less insurance costs, and so on. And a long-term less volatility. So they will choose it, and by educating we can decrease the cost and like speed up the adoption and let them avoid the mistakes and avoid the reputational risk to the Ethereum as a network, where let it be that institutions would adopt something and say, oh, our very like experts inside the company made a mistake, so as Ethereum that is too difficult. That could be a claim, and we want to avoid those claims. But is it in the end in our role to think about the security on application layer to some extent as well? So we have this $1 trillion security where we say it's not only technology, but it's a social layer of like education, explanation of the UX. So we care about it, and ideally it would keep improving. But yeah, in the end, you can execute everything yourself, and it's good if you have solutions in between and improving access to trustlessness, as long as the SDKs, the integrations actually say, oh, you can merge it with better UX. So then you reach the stages where you have both UX and trustlessness, and I think that's what you were striving for. So it's great to see the effort.
Yeah, and I think it's like all around the communication to the user about that, so that they can make their own informed choice. And L2Beat is actually doing a lot of work on this, and they announced yesterday that they're working on a new interoperability framework to rate interop protocols, so that this could be something that is displayed to users, and also give interop protocols an incentive to kind of make those change.
L2Bit is amazing, and they're doing a great job in explaining the risk to institutions. Like the amount of times where institutions come and ask those questions about like which L2s are risky or not, for what reasons, and the same for data availability and now for interop. So great to see that. That helps a lot.
Yeah, I guess turning to intents. So a lot of teams naturally push intents as the future of UX. And the manifesto argues that intents add some trust and centralization vectors. Where do you personally stand on this? What's your thought?
Sorry, I didn't hear everything, but I think that you say that, what do I think about the intents, whether they introduce the trust assumptions or not?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, like intent as as a concept is really broad. You can interpret it in many different ways. As the existing solutions with intents, I think they definitely introduce many trust components, right? So they do address most of the problems related to the UX, to the need of integrations, and probably decrease a lot of risks of misimplementation, of bridging, and the delays. So they improve the capital efficiency most likely, but introduce some risk into all of this, which means that they introduce trust requirements. But then I always was very much about thinking about intent as a word, as a definition. I thought, well, it's pretty neutral, and you can implement it in trustless way or trusted way. But yeah, I think that many existing solutions either are slightly trusted or very much trusted, or they're trustless but limit the type of operations that you can execute.
Yeah. What do you think, like, generally is more dangerous for Ethereum? Moving too slowly and missing the boat, or moving too fast and abandoning Ethereum values?
I love this question because each time when I hear something like, should we choose between moving fast or not making mistakes and so on, I always say that Ethereum should always have only people at the most important positions that can do both. That's the only way to really deliver something impactful and be at the top of the delivery, is to move super fast and be super precise and never make mistakes. And this is the nature of the expert teams and winners, that you move fast and you're precise. So both, not choose. So like, the moment when we start even expressing that we have choice between those two properties, we start to making that choice, and we think that it's okay to sacrifice one for the other. And then it's like the very easy way to accept mediocre approach, and I just don't accept it. We have to move fast and execute perfect.
Yeah, that's the goal, isn't it? So one of the advantages of the Ethereum ecosystem of L2s is that they settle to the L1 as the source of truth. But for all L1s, they don't have this advantage. So when designing interop protocols, do you think that interop protocols should be designed with, like, for Ethereum, for L2s that have trustless solutions and use this unique property of being able to settle to the L1s? Or do you think that interop protocols should be designed more broadly that can also cover the scope of alt L1s and other chains?
Yeah, so when we were working on various interop solutions for Ethereum, we've heard this feedback that, oh, if you design something only for Ethereum ecosystem, that maybe you will lose to the protocols that automatically include all the alternative L1s. At the same time, I have the strong conviction that over time you have such a dominance of Ethereum ecosystem that's the only way to get all the benefits of the trustlessness and lowering the risk of your assets will be to exist in the Ethereum ecosystem. So on the edges, like with alternative L1s, the amount of risk will be just too high and inefficient and too expensive. So that maybe convinces me that it's totally okay to build something that is just Ethereum specific, while saying that since the outside of Ethereum ecosystem you have more risk, then you can also potentially accept the risk on the additional risk on the bridges. So sure, if we were all the time worried about bringing liquidity to Ethereum, then maybe it would be more of our responsibility. It will be also a responsibility to maybe involve more L1s if somehow we believe that the future is with all of those L1s existing and participating in liquidity flows. But since we both kind of have liquidity advantage on L1 and also believe in the future when it progresses, then maybe it's not as important as some people are suggesting. So it would be best to deliver solutions like EIL and strengthen the existing somewhere in the middle solutions that are so successful on Ethereum.
Yeah, I think, so one of the things that we've talked about at this conference is how EIL avoids the solver mid-state completely. And what I mean by the solver mid-state is that when I, as the user, have this intention and I give it to the solver can then go and decide to take a different route or censor me or block my transaction. Whereas with EIL, I don't give that intention to the liquidity provider that is providing the funds for me. So they are not aware of what I'm doing on the destination chain, and they don't have my intent. So they cannot censor me, they can't front run me, or block my transaction. So do you think that this model of kind of avoiding this mid-state and should become a norm in the interop space of trying to figure out ways to avoid this mid-state dependency?
Once again, it depends on the user expectation. If there was no solution like this, it would be disaster. You want to give, like whether it's institutional users or any users, you want to give them ability to execute privately, depending, like whatever they want to execute between two chains. So it matters. It does matter a lot. And on the other hand, if you establish very good trust relationship with a counterparty, and if you're okay with that, then again, we say that blockchain delivers the trust, ambient trust, for the ecosystems, for the industries, or for the jurisdictions, regions, where there is a lack of trust between the users and institutions. But in the world where there is a lot of trust, that very often becomes cheaper than the integrations of blockchain. And that's where you want to leave the user opportunity to say, actually, I don't care if someone knows what I'm going to execute, but I can totally trust that they will maintain the privacy within our circle. So then it's fine, but both are needed. And that base, the trustlessness, the privacy delivered by Ethereum is incredibly important. And that's the set of values that we set for ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's kind of one of the points that we were making in the Trustless Manifesto is how whether you think you can trust someone or you don't think you can, you still are placing the responsibility in the hands, and you're giving them the opportunity, I guess, to be able to hurt you or to be able to take a bad action. I think it's very hard to verify that someone is that you can completely trust them. I mean, it's actually impossible, I would say.
But this is that difference between the high trust environments and the low trust environments. Because in the low trust environment, you will say, I'm giving someone an opportunity to take advantage of me. In the high trust environment, I say, I'm giving someone an opportunity to deliver additional value to me. And it's really like this. You know, many people are looking at blockchain in the well-functioning economies, and they say you're so full of paranoia that everyone will try to steal from you, and that's just because we keep thinking about all of those edge cases and bad scenarios and the black swan events. But the moment when we start forcing everyone into those solutions, that's when very often we are rejected. I think that's important for solving the problems, the real problems, and making sure that we allow the world to exist in a good UX, high trust solutions. My perfect world will be the one where blockchain is not needed, right? Where we have so much trust between people and institutions that actually say, well, this is a waste of time, this is a waste of effort. That's not the world that we live in, and that's why what we are building is so important. But saying that every time I trust someone, I give them opportunity to take advantage, that's like, maybe for each of us, it's easy to understand this concept by just thinking about relationships. That's why we trust friends and family, because we care about it.
Yeah, I think we've seen, I think the role of blockchain, and one of the reasons I think that Ethereum was created is when you have a centralized banking system, you are fundamentally placing your trust in an intermediary. And we have seen ways that banks have taken advantage of that. And we have also seen ways in crypto, that there have been crazy hacks, there have been exploits, people's trust has been broken many, many times. And so I think it can come off as very adversarial to frame it as, trusting them is giving them an opportunity to hurt us. But I think that adversarial mindset is true because it has happened in the past, and there have been many instances of that, and which has led us to create these decentralized and trustless systems, because otherwise I would argue that maybe we're just recreating a banking infrastructure. What's the difference?
But there's huge difference between forcing someone into something and giving someone an opportunity, like forcing and giving someone an option. So saying, oh, the banks are evil, I kind of never thought the banks in general are evil. There were many failures and big failures. Some banks are really evil. But also we look at the hundreds of years of the financial services from banks. And when I was joining the blockchain space, my first thought was, I'm coming with lots of experience of the traditional finance. And I think that one very, very much missing feature of this ecosystems is that for many years, the space will be full of people that have this lots of hate towards traditional finance, but there will be not enough people that think that you can evolutionarily deliver this general improvement and convergence of the traditional finance and decentralization. I thought that obviously in traditional finance, the options for decentralized, for trustless spaces were absolutely missing for years. And now we have technology that can deliver that. But rejecting everything that we've built over hundreds of years of the financial functions, of credit functions, of the international financial markets, of the international insurance, payments, also this enabled so many people to build so many great things. And I think that was also one big complaint in the past about Ethereum, that we almost rejected the ability to build together and to make money by delivering the value to others and delivering UX. So that's my way of thinking here.
Yeah, I think it's hard because we have these traditional financial institutions, but one of the things that I think about is I think of trust as a pyramid. That if you have a trustless base, you can build a trusted solution on top of it. You can build a trusted dApp, and that can work great. But if the base itself is trusted, you can't put a trustless, and you can't build anything trustless on top of it.
Yeah, I agree entirely on this one. Yeah, that's why I'm building that base.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, on that, I think I will end. And if we have any questions, I think Diana is going to come and let us know. Do we have any?
Thank you so much.
You guys covered so much already.
Yeah.
All good. We actually have two questions that I picked out. So question number one, Tomasz, recently the Ethereum Foundation has gone pretty hard on creative, and people are liking the storytelling that you do with the addition of the digital team and people telling stories and posting videos. Do you plan on continuing in that direction, and what is your vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a lot of effort from the EcoDev teams and Josh Stark and Josh Schweitzer on communication and PR. They not only deliver the message and respond to all the crises, but they also started doing it in a very high quality way with the greatest creators, whether it's Louis or Benji, and the way they speak, they deliver emotions, the way of how they understand what people feel, the visuals that they provide, that gives so many more people ability to express something. And it's not only technical, but also delivers the values and emotions. And if Ethereum Foundation cares about values, then you cannot just deliver technology, you just also talk about people, and people are about art. And you don't have to push more for it. It's good that you have minimal, and if you have minimal with absolutely world-class top people, that is such a pleasure to look at their work, their efforts, then it's great. And I think that we should have it, we should continue with it. It doesn't mean that we should push more and more of it.
That was an excellent answer. I am personally very happy because I'm a big, big fan of Louis and Benji's and Josh's work and all of that. Marissa, one question for you. You are one of the authors of the Trustless Manifesto. What was the process like? How long did it take to get to the version that we see today so beautifully put together?
Yeah, it was something that we started thinking about because when we were looking at the interop space, we were seeing how many trust assumptions there actually were in moving funds cross-chain, and we realized that this was something that that we, as the account and chain abstraction and Vitalik, wanted to make a statement about and to say something publicly. So we started with the draft. I would say we got some input from Silviculture Society and worked on it for about a week until it came out in the version that you guys see. But it was really inspired by wanting to create a standard for trustlessness, wanting to let builders know that this is something they need to be thinking about in their designs. And I think it was quite of an aspirational piece. And one piece that I think comes next is okay, what are the concrete steps builders and protocol developers can take to do this? What are the things they need to check? And so that's something that we're thinking about now and really want to put going forward.
Amazing. And again, once again, if you have not read and or signed the Trustless Manifesto, you should do that today. Thank you both so much. Thank you, Tomasz, and thank you, Marissa. Please
Thank
a
you
big
so
round of
much,
applause.
Marissa.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
organizing.